Hello and welcome to The Reluctant Chef. My name is Bob, and today I'm going to be making a somewhat spicy marinated shrimp. A marinade is a sauce that's made up of some kind of oil, usually olive oil, and different spices and other flavorings, and you put either meat or seafood, in this case shrimp, to soak in that marinade, and it becomes very flavorful that way. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to need 2 good-sized cloves of garlic. We're actually going to use fresh garlic. We're going to need a couple of cutting boards. We're going to need a couple knives. We're going to need a bowl. Works better if you have one with a lip on it. We're going to need a green onion. We're going to chop up here in a few minutes. A 1/4 cup of olive oil, a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of chili powder. If you want your shrimp to be a little spicier, you can add a little more chili powder. We're going to need 2 tablespoons of honey. We need the juice of 2 limes, or the equivalent, which would be 4 tablespoons of lime juice. We're going to need some measuring spoons, a fork for some stirring we're going to do here in a bit. We're going to need a pound of cleaned, deveined shrimp, which is actually in the refrigerator because I don't want to leave it out until I'm ready to start working with it. We're going to need a large sealing refrigerator bag. We're going to need a colander or strainer to put the shrimp in while we work with them. Then when the shrimp is finished, we're going to serve it over white rice. We're going to need 3/4 cup of dry rice for about 3 servings, 1 1/4 cup of water, about a teaspoon, maybe a little more, of butter, and a good hefty pinch of salt. And then the last 2 pieces, of course, we're going to need a skillet to saute the shrimp in, and our utensils for stirring, and a covered saucepan to cook the rice in. So that's our mise en place. So the first task here is going to be to make the marinade. We're going to go ahead and use the fresh garlic, and we're going to need 2 good-sized cloves. And as you probably know, the darn things come wrapped in sort of a tissue-like kind of covering. So to start with, slice off the ends of the garlic clove, and then to really loosen up that covering, take the side of the knife and give it a good brisk thump, and then usually the covering will peel right off. Now we're ready to actually get it chopped up and minced. What I'm going to do is just chop it pretty quickly, and now the mincing part starts. And all that means is just taking the knife and chopping the garlic up into little tiny pieces. Now, that's the hardest part done. So this is the bowl that we're going to mix up the marinade in. So just go ahead and slide the garlic in there. Now, I'm not going to need the green onion actually until the shrimp is ready to serve. But as long as I got the knife and the cutting board dirty, I just as well go ahead and chop up the green onion. So slice off the roots at the end. We're not going to need that. And then I'm going to cut it in fairly thin slices. The green onion's mostly for show. It's sort of a garnish that we're going to have ready to put on the top of the shrimp when it's finished. And since we're not going to need it for a while, I'm just going to scoop it up and use another one of these little glass bowls to cover it with and put it into the fridge until I'm ready to use it. What I'm going to do now is finish mixing up the marinade. I've got the salt that I've measured out here, chili powder, and the pepper. Now, I'm going to measure out the 2 tablespoons of honey before I measure out the required lime juice, because the lime juice is going to wash the residual honey out of the measuring spoon. Now, you're always going to leave a little bit in the spoon. There's no way out of that. The honey, as you know, is quite viscous and doesn't want to give up the spoon. And that brings us to the lime juice, which we're going to need 4 tablespoons of, which is the equivalent of 2 limes. Shake it up real good. And like I said, the reason I do this last is because it sort of washes some of the remaining honey out of the tablespoon. I'm just going to put the olive oil in as the last thing. And Take this fork and stir all of this up together. Okay, that's pretty thoroughly mixed, and we'll give it another good stir before we actually use it. I would just set this aside for the moment. And now to the shrimp. First of all, one of the things about seafood, you really do want to keep your utensils and your work surface clean. And we're going to use a separate clean cutting board. Now, this is where the sealable plastic bag comes into service, because this is what we're going to marinate the shrimp in. And what I like to do is sort of turn the top of it down, give it a little collar. Now, a couple of points to make about the shrimp. What I was fortunate enough to get is fresh shrimp that has been deveined and been cleaned. Unfortunately, there still is a little moisture adhering to it. What I'm going to do is take it out of the package and put it in the strainer. Okay, so now I'm going to not exactly stir. They're pretty delicate, so I don't want to break them up in little pieces, but just move them around a little bit to get the last little bit of the water to drain off. Now, what we have here is not just the tail, but above the tail there's a crusty kind of membrane. So what I do is I cut the meat part of the shrimp off just above there. For what it's worth too, I'm actually doing it by feel, not by sight. It's how it feels that tells me where I want to cut. I want to cut just above where it's tough. So now, start dumping them in the bag and get them out of the way. We'll go back to our marinade, and it's settled a little bit, but not much. So we'll just give it another quick stir and pour it into the bag with the shrimp. We want to lay the bag on its side with everything down at the bottom of it so it doesn't come squirting out. And we want to press out as much of the air as possible, or reasonably possible, and then we'll seal up the bag. Now all we got to do is mush the shrimp around in the marinade so all the shrimp get covered with it, and put it in the fridge. It needs to marinate for at least an hour, but it can be overnight, it can be all day, whatever suits your schedule. Okay, the shrimp has been marinating in the refrigerator for well over an hour. So first thing we're going to do is get the rice rolling. Be sure to follow the directions on the package of the rice that you buy. All we're going to do is pour our water in, dry rice, our tablespoon or so of butter, and our salt. And that was a heavy pinch of salt. We're not after precision here. And then we put a pretty high flame under it. And all we're going to do is bring it to a boil, give it a quick stir, cover it, turn it down to a simmer, and let it simmer for 15 minutes. That's all there is to it. While we wait for the water to start to boil, when it comes time to saute the shrimp is supposed to saute in a medium to hot pan, skillet, like this. Now, to me it doesn't make sense to turn a hot burner under an empty pan. So I made this up myself, but it just makes sense to me that what I want to do, instead of just putting the heat under there, is I put water in the pan, and of course the amount of water doesn't really matter. The point is just to protect the pan. That's all I'm doing here. So I pour the water in, then I feel perfectly comfortable putting a medium-high flame under it. I'm probably not going to let it boil. I just want it to get plenty hot so that the pan is thoroughly hot when the time comes to dump in the shrimp. All right, now you can see water's boiling. So I'm going to give it a quick stir. Butter circulated throughout the rice. Let it start foaming up again. That's good. Put a tight lid on it. Turn the heat down to simmer. And then I'm going to set the timer for 15 minutes. Okay, rice is done. So turn the burner off, and we're just going to set the rice aside. Like I said, it's going to rest for 5 to 10 minutes while we saute the shrimp. I'm going to turn off this burner a minute and get the hot water out of the pan. We've got the pan thoroughly heated. And dump this pan and immediately turn the heat back on pretty high flame because we want to cook fast. What I'm going to do is just spread it out So all the shrimp are on the bottom of the pan, and I'm going to set the timer for 4 minutes. And what I'm doing here is I'm trying one by one to flip each shrimp over so each one gets cooked on either side. And you can see that the ones that I've flipped over, a little bit brown to them on the side that's been on the pan for a while. And you can see by the frothing that I've got a pretty high flame under this. Okay, there's the timer. So we're going to let it go. You can see the rice is nice and fluffy and all the water's absorbed. So all I'm going to do is just put the rice in the bowl and as neatly as I can pour this in top of the rice. Now again, this is just basically garnish. And there you have it. It's delicious. It's just delicious. You get that hint of the lime juice, you get the little bit of the spiciness, and it's really nice. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you enjoy making it, and I hope that the tips I provided make it possible for you to do that in a confident and easy kind of way. And with that, I leave you with my best wishes.